Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Chaney. I'm the Vice President of Franchise Development for Right at Home. And thanks for watching this 15-minute franchisee interview with Larry Anthony. Larry, thanks for joining me today.
Jen, thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Okay, well, why don't we start with just the basics? So your name, location, number of years you've been a franchise owner, and number of territories you own.
Great. Larry Anthony. My territory is officially called the LA Westside. And we're basically west of Los Angeles, the center of LA, kind of near UCLA for those of you who know the LA area. So that's ground zero as far as the headquarters goes. We're in our 9th year here. I began my trek in 2012, officially signed up and wrote the check in 2013, and we launched in October of 2013. So we had our 8-year anniversary. So in the 9th year, we have 3 territories. I started off with 2 territories, one that I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and the other one where I live on the west side of Los Angeles. So when I first contacted Right at Home, we'll probably get into that shortly, it was like, wait a minute, the sky just parted, the sun shone down. I like this. So I bought 2 territories right away. And then there's a tangential territory called Beverly Hills, which is 3 minutes outside my now corporate office down the block. And so we picked up Beverly Hills in actually September of last year with a new 25-year franchise life expectancy. Awesome. So we're staying very busy. And I think Right at Home is happy to have me with that expanded bit of territory.
We are. And okay, so describe to our listeners what you did before you became a Right at Home franchise owner.
So for approximately 40 years, actually 36 and a half, I got into telecom in the 70s and then started getting into consulting of telecom, I sold that company to a public firm, and I became an executive and a senior executive then later in public companies, managing large swaths of the United States for a regional basis for this major telecom company in New York. And that took me into the internet because that was a major component of how they distributed their network. So I really got my feet into the internet in the late 90s, early 2000s. And in 2000, it was probably 2010 or 11, the business had morphed in so many different ways. And I really wanted something else to do, like what do I want to do for the rest of my life realization. And that's where I was. And the next step is how I got here. But in 2011, I think I made a firm choice to do something. And it took me a year of thinking about it and looking around. And, I had a wet finger in the air, seeing which way the wind was blowing. And that took me to where I am.
Okay. So I think you were about ready to go into this. So you have a lot of choices when it comes to purchasing an in-home care and assistance business. So why specifically did you choose Right at Home? And maybe tell everybody the story. I think it's a fantastic story as to how you learned about Right at Home.
Sure. There's nothing like wearing the shoes of your customer. So for 12 years, I took care of my parents, hiring and firing caregivers in their agencies. And I got so good at it, I got into it. And I'll tell you how that happened. But it was enlightening. It was frustrating. It was all that, you hear when you're being interviewed by prospective clients. And of course, having, as I say, walked miles with their shoes on and identifying with them, it puts me not in an advantage, but I'm there where they are. Yeah. And I can do that with pretty quick uptake, if you will. Mm-hmm. How I exactly found Right at Home was after settling my late stepfather's estate. He was the second one of the 2 to go. I'm on a Southwest Airlines plane flying from Northern California to Southern California. And here's that proverbial magazine in the seat back in front of you. And I picked it up, and as I'm thumbing through, there's an ad with people wearing shirts with logos like this. Mm-hmm. So here's this ad, people wearing shirts superimposed over a picture of a ball game saying, we're having fun, helping people, and earning an income. And I tore the ad out, took it home. And on Monday, I called Right at Home, and I talked to a gentleman named Eric Martin, who was very, very open to what I was asking, didn't hide anything. I immediately, after hanging up from him, called Comfort Keepers, Visiting Angels, Home Instead, Seniors Helping Seniors, to check the others, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a name. I wanted something that I could fall back on. Yes, I could have done this, and because I thought I knew the business so well, pinned the tail on the donkey myself, but it's a real responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So after having checked these others, I kept coming back from Right at Home, and it was for two main reasons. One, the territories, yes, that I talked about that were available, not just because they were convenient, but because the zip codes, frankly, are amongst the more affluent in the city and county that I live in.
Yep.
But just to the extent that the other thing that was compelling was the training and the people, because of discovery and the other process that I went through and the disclosures and things like that, and interviewing other caregivers, I became more convinced that Right at Home was more in line with how I approach things, how I evaluate things, and ultimately how I make decisions. So in March, I went to Discovery Day in Omaha, and within a couple of days, FedEx a check. So that's how I got to Right at Home.
Perfect. I love it. So walk me through just a typical day for Larry Anthony, Right at Home franchise owner. What does a typical day look like for you? Is there such a thing? If you can't describe
we
it.
try to get started with a brief staff meeting to see where we are. Because of the number of caregivers we have and the 4,000 to 5,000 hours we run a week, I manage, I'm spinning plates, if you will, and trying to keep them all in the air and spinning. So we have a quick huddle, I call it. And that's between me and at least 3 or 4 other people who are here in the main office with me. And we see, what do we have? What do we got? Because overnight, I may have picked up a lead. I'll give some quick advice to the potential franchisees as I give to my fellow franchisees now, but I'm an opportunist. And so I look for opportunity everywhere I can. And if I were to say, what's my unfair advantage? That's one of them. I'm not shy. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy what I do immensely. And to the extent that as I go through the day, we start off with this huddle. We go through the important points. It's a sanity check on where are we and where are we going. And then I delegate what I can and absorb what I know I can do. I'm the closer. I'm the one that is responsible for most of the business that we bring in, although my director of ops and one other here can actually do it, up to and including assessments in the field and taking out contracts and having the service agreement signed and then coming back in with, okay, here's a new one. So I do most of that, but I also cultivate relationships with influencers, centers of influence, if you will. And that's taken a while to do. This is not something somebody fresh off the other career getting into a franchise with Right at Home may be able to do with aplomb. But as you get to know people and put yourself out there, you will attract business. And by reciprocating whenever you can and being cognizant of what people are doing for you and always saying thank you and showing sincerity, even if you can't give somebody a lead back, send them a thank you note, take them to lunch, express how much it means to you. And that adds up. It cumulatively makes a difference. And now in 9 years, or going on 9 years, I've managed to do that. And that's why we've seen our growth, which is very respectable. So it's something that you have to have. And being resourceful is just part of getting out there. The other thing that I do by the end of the day is I check with, how did we do? Did we hit all of our goals? Did anything new come up? Because ultimately I may have to be the one pulling a trigger and making a decision, although I delegate certain financial things to our controller. And, as the new franchise grows, don't be afraid to delegate, inspect what you expect, and you'll probably be sane by the end of the day.
Perfect. Those are great pieces of advice that you just gave to some of our prospective owners that may be listening right now. So, as you know, part of being one of the things that are associated with a franchise concept is all of the processes, the procedures, all of those things are already in place. Right at Home, one thing that I'm very proud of and that I know happens is that we provide an incredible amount of support to our franchise owners. So what would you say of all the support that you receive? What do you find the most valuable?
It starts with, obviously, it's a people company. It's never changed. In all the years I've been here, it's still the same company from the standpoint of, do I feel like I'm part of something? Do I feel like I can depend on people if the chips are down? Not that they happen often, but Jason, our district manager, has been with me for over 8 years. I appreciate what he does, and his availability is typical. So it comes and starts with, my most immediate contacts, but I've cultivated other people as friends, and you might say associates, people who, if I've got something with the internet or something that I'm trying to do with collateral or something like that. The hub, by the way, which I call the Smithsonian Institution of Right at Home, is the greatest resource for. It's like the phone a friend, the where you can go and typically get pretty close to, if not finding exactly what you need. It's a little bit of a exercise in getting to know how to do it. But if you break the code on that, the hub is a remarkable piece of archaic of archived data. And that I use periodically, as well as, just the things like the updates, the weekend updates and things like that. So those are the mainstays of Right at Home. The name I like a lot. It plays to what we do. It sounds familiar to people when they go right at home. Right at home. That's where we do it. Right at home. So it's the spin, if you will, is not left unnoticed by prospective customers or clients, if I can.
Yep. Okay, got it. So I have a two-part question for you. So if you think about when you were first doing your research on Right at Home, so I suppose two pieces of advice. A piece of advice that you could give someone who is looking into, possibly purchasing a Right at Home franchise. So they're doing their research, they're doing their due diligence. Maybe one piece of advice like, hey, don't forget to do this while you're doing your research, something that you found very valuable when you were doing your research. And on the second half, let's go back to when you first became a franchise owner. What's the one piece of advice that you can give to someone who's just starting in this business? So two-part question.
Well, the first part, I talked about being resourceful. I think that when you look at this as a opportunity for business, which is what it is, the main advice I have is be patient. You can't expect a miracle to happen overnight. I got into this knowing that it would probably take a while before I hit black ink, so to speak. So patience is very, very important for anyone. If you are an impatient individual, you probably will be disappointed with the progress if you want this to happen overnight. It's Rome wasn't built in a day advice.
Yep.
Secondarily, I call myself a race car, but I can't get anywhere without fuel. Employees are my fuel. You have to show that you appreciate them. You have to reward them. They're not making as much money as you. So share what you're able to put together, and it will come back manyfold. Having human resource problems, you don't want that in this business. Obviously, there's a caregiver shortage nationwide. I talk to people all the time, and getting an opportunity for something that's a six-figure engagement and having to say, can I call you in 2 weeks? No, my dad's getting out of the hospital tomorrow, Mr. Anthony. Well, 2 weeks. I'll call you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be out of gasoline, so to speak, or running ahead of your headlights, which is taking an engagement and then saying, okay, now what do I do? So that's part of something else that I will say is tangential to treating your employees well. Be honest with your clients. Just tell them like it is. People can accept the truth. Yeah. If you sugarcoat it or something like that, it'll come back to haunt you. So employees and honesty is kind of a one item with a slash in the middle of it.
That's right. Awesome pieces of advice, Larry. And that's actually, time flies when you're having fun. That's actually the only questions that I have for you. Is there anything final that you would like to add for our listeners?
Well, I work 5.5 or more days a week. I like what I do. I meet a lot of nice people. That's what I'll tell people. You're going to meet a lot of nice people. You'll hear great stories, fabulous stories out of people. So it's like every new client has a bit of a, it's a bit of an adventure, so to speak. And when you know you're making a difference, you get a good night's sleep. And I do.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Larry. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Nice talking to you. Take care.
Yes, you too.